Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We are going to talk this afternoon.
Recording in progress.
We are going to talk this afternoon about waste, energy, and management. And for a plenary speaker, we have a distinguished professor, Noemí Padrón. She is a professor in environmental economics at the University of Laguna. She has been also a professor at the University of Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona and the University Carlos III in Madrid. And she has been also a scholar, visiting scholar in the University of Wisconsin in the United States and University of Tilburg in the Netherlands. She has a long-standing record in research in environmental and ecological economics and has contributed a lot for the design of environmental policy using market permits. She was a pioneer, a scholar and scientist in this area. And also she has a long background in waste management and managing waste in islands, and also in energy economics and other areas of environmental issues and environmental problems and policy making. She is a very thoughtful scholar, so you are going to hear very good thoughts, very profound ideas on the issues of waste management and energy management and the issues we're talking this afternoon. So I hope you enjoy her presentation. Thank you very much, Noemí, for coming to this meeting, and we are glad to have you here this afternoon. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Thank you very much, Carmelo, for your presentation. I'm very happy and pleased to join you at this special event you are having in the Palma Island. I have to apologize because I could not be there today, even though and I didn't have the time because of different problems with my agenda to prepare this presentation. I have a very tough task, which is to talk about the three major key public sectors, which is water management of the water cycle in the islands, waste, including wastewater. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, there is. Great. Thank you. So my task is to talk about three major sectors and to do it within 20 minutes. I'm very flexible, so please, I have prepared some major reflections on what do I want to share with you about my research in the last years in the Canary Islands about this, and please interrupt me and ask whatever you want while I'm talking. I want to start with this map to show you the complexity of any environmental issue or any economic issue in the Canary Islands. We are talking about an archipelago which is kind of far from the mainland. Not from the mainland because we have Africa nearby, but because of farness to the European continent. We indeed share with other islands in the Atlantic some common issues like the volcanic risk we are having, but we are completely different. We are 8 islands, a big archipelago, very highly populated. Indeed, for example, the Madeira Island has 250,000 people. Cape Verde might have 400,000. So we are, 8 islands with a major population pressure, a lot of biodiversity and local endemisms, and two very, let's say, primary sectors, which is the tourism industry and the agricultural sector, exporting goods and services all over the world intensively during the last decade. So tourism contribution to GDP, it's about 35% in 2019. So these are the main numbers. This is very important when we talk about sustainability or to contextualize sustainability and to talk about the challenges in any of these sectors, especially because island economies differ significantly, and they have a singular social and governance culture. First of all, being an archipelago means that you have 8 islands which are completely different. So you are there in La Palma, and the reality for energy, for water, or for waste management is completely different of what's happening here in Tenerife or what's happening in the island of Lanzarote. We share common challenges, but the problems and the solutions cannot come homogeneously for all of them. We have a double fragmentation, so you have 2 main islands like Tenerife and Gran Canaria, and then the rest of the island receiving goods and services from this, logistic point of view. And not only the products have to come in the islands, but they have to come out in terms of not only final products to be sold, but also to, for example, in terms of waste, you need reverse logistics to take that waste away. So you have specific economies of scale and multi-risk in the Canary Islands. Look at this sentence. We are too small to have any continental focus on sustainable issues. We are too small to have to apply any of the sustainability principles and criteria right away that you are working for the continental land. But at the same time, we are too big to have a community and local stakeholders approach to sustainable issues. Secondly, we have, as I said, land scarcity, not only because of the islands, but because of the biodiversity in all the different ecosystems, terrestrial, marine, and that land scarcity, which translates into 7 biosphere reserves, 4 national parks of the 14 existing in Spain, 3 marine reserves. In total, we have 146 protected natural spaces that reduces land availability to the limit that for everything we do, we will have a social conflict. Then an additional dimension I want to mention for solutions in any of these sectors is that we have regulation of governance for problems of the last century. In the map that I showed you before, I forgot to mention that climate change brings, new challenges to the islands. Climate change is already changing natural hazards, the behavior of natural hazards and risk environment currently. So we need new regulation for the new technologies in the 21st century and also new governance from the point of view of the EU directives, Spanish government, and even from the Canary Island regional government. There's a setting of regulatory capture also in the Canary Islands. This is what I call still a colonial economy. We are still dominated by natural monopolies that were established for solve problems in the last century. The worst problem now is that these are not national monopolies, but there are international investment funds. So, for example, waste management in the Canary Islands is in the hands of an investment fund from the United States. Before it was from China. Energy, it's an global E.ON company which determines which are the main focuses. So in a way, the islands are ruled from many financial funds in other places in the world. And finally, this is a highly subsidized economy which reduces the living cost for many, not only for residents but also for the tourism sector, distorting constantly the relative prices. So in the Canary Islands, we have not only Schengen law, which allows Europeans to move to work in the islands. Indeed, the islands have increased population by 500,000 in the last decades. This is the largest increase in population all over Europe. And the main source of population is Italy. So think that, this is a very attractive tourism industry for many companies and for many people all over Europe. And this is what I call the polluter pay principle in the Canary Islands. So the more you pollute in the Canary Islands, the cheaper any public services it becomes. And this is the rule of thumb ruling all these sectors. I have, in addition, of course, we have lack of information and transparency that, affects people perception of what is being done in energy, water, or waste in the islands. Water allocation in the Canary Islands is singular, is different from the water allocation in the rest of Spain or Europe. Indeed, water is mainly private, it's in private hands. Not only in the island of Tenerife or the islands that have main groundwater sources, and that has created a water culture, not only a topography in the islands. This is a picture of La Palma galleries, how the islands have been crafted to produce water. And then being private, how is it being distributed to water users, which is the picture you have in the lower hand. So, we have a complex public and private, the public sector only intervenes to reduce the cost of water to farmers and to landowners. If energy was cheap enough and had no carbon footprint, we will have no water problems. The islands, if the scenario for the island is to have cheap energy with no carbon footprint in the future, we will have no water and wastewater problems. However, this is not going to happen, not only because of the technical and governance difficulties to develop renewable energy sources, but also because of governance. Meanwhile, what is happening with water in the islands, not only in La Palma, but also in the rest of the islands, is that even though we would like to increase wastewater treatment plants, there is no sewerage network in the islands. Most of houses and hotels in La Palma introduce wastewater into the land directly into the underground sources. So even though we put wastewater treatment plants, there's no sewage network. And moreover, water losses in the local networks are beyond 60%. So agriculture has a very low efficiency rate, and municipal networks are very inefficient too. So there is some governance set up for water, which means that water is being wasted, and at the same time, there are big plans to invest in water infrastructure to produce more water. It's like something is not working, and I think it's relative prices in the water sector. Because of the main problem for for energy development in the Canary Islands is not a technical problem. It's a land problem. It's also a property rights problem. Who has the right to develop what and where? In this picture, you have on the right side a picture of Corona del Viento, which is the renewable water producing and stocking energy system in the island of El Hierro. We have other sources of energy possible, which is ocean, marine energy. We have land, wind power. We have photovoltaic. But the main problem in the islands, because of the size, too big to have renewable, 100% renewable energy, but too small to have, stocking capacity or connected to other networks. But what they don't show you in the island of El Hierro is that they have to renew completely to have the Corona del Viento. They have to renew the fuel electricity producing company in the island. This is not a picture of the fuel utility in El Hierro. I couldn't find it in the internet. This is a utility from another island. But the monopolies in the island, and DESA monopoly, will not allow to give up income coming from the energy generation in the Canary Islands. Indeed, the Spanish government provides an extra 1,000 million euro to the energy network monopoly in the Canary Islands, which is the main barrier for renewable energy development in the islands. In spite of that, the government of the Canary Islands has set a plan for carbon neutrality in 2040, 10 years before the plans for the European Union and even for Spain. But the system is not ready for that transition. We don't have workers or employees prepared to enter or to install all those energy systems. We don't have, the rest of sectors or the rest of the industry ready to, walk that transition. So we come a little bit late to be too fast in that energy transition. Of course, to do that transition, we need, innovation, more innovation in technologies, and to develop digitalization and solutions coming from, a mixture from bottom to the top of the system. And from a waste, regarding the waste sector, which is my, most water and waste are the sectors that I have been working the most in the last decade. Islands have a very big problem with waste because globalization and trade has allowed waste to come into the islands, ending, products and materials here in the islands with an effect of cul-de-sac. So you have a small territory with a very big economy. The Canary Islands have a big population and a big tourism sector and a big economy, producing too much waste for the, vulnerability of the territory they have. And it's very expensive to take, to have a reverse logistics to take all those waste out. Indeed, the Canary Islands have the lowest recyclable rates in Spain and almost in Europe because of the the collective systems in Spain find it too expensive to collect and to bring recyclable waste to mainland and be treated there. So we have developed only recently the extended producer responsibility systems in the Canary Islands, and we have no refund system, so collecting is very expensive and it's in the hands of the waste producers, again, with a lot of monopoly power. So in my opinion, we need a regional regulatory framework specific to establish material limits in the islands. For example, one single-use plastics limits in entering the islands. Remember, we are also, off the fiscal system in Europe, so we are introducing, goods and services that do not comply with European regulation into the island. So, for example, we can bring it from China or from other African countries, products that have been packaged or has been produced with materials and without the green point that ensures that this material can be produced. So here, what happens is the same. The prices are distorted. It's too cheap to landfill the waste in the Canary Islands, and it's too expensive for producer or for other agents to collect the waste and to bring it or to construct new infrastructure in the Canary Islands. Again, we have rent capture of big monopolies in the Canary Islands, and here also from the municipal governments. I'm going to stop here because these are the main messages I wanted to bring and to give you the floor so you can ask whatever you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Noemí, for this snapshot, very interesting presentation of key note issues on the 3 areas we are covering this afternoon. Now we have some sort of questions for you to ask if you want to interact with her. And we also have waiting our distinguished panel of experts that I will introduce you later on. So if you have any questions, please.
Hello, and thank you for your really thought-provoking presentation. I had one a question. You mentioned the issue of monopolies a few times. And my question is whether an island like La Palma is large enough for competition in the sectors of energy and water and the others, or whether its scale will always require a centralized one or whatever that inevitably will be a monopoly.
Yes, I'm glad you bring that question because I think that I didn't, I wanted to bring that issue, but I went too quick over it, I think the key issue on sustainability in the islands. Okay, so here what happens, when we talk about monopoly structures or monopoly networks, we cannot look back to, a 50 or 30 years ago technology to understand, what is the structure of production of services such as energy. Because it is not a monopoly power anymore. I mean, we have thousands of producers. You can have them in an island or in the continent. The only monopoly, technology or monopolistic technology is the network, But indeed, the network could be even multiplied. So no monopoly technology anymore, but we have monopolies, private or public, firms uniquely providing that services. Sometimes because they are local, like in water at the municipal scale, but this is not true anymore even, in the UK, for example, water has, become a competitive, the local service of water has become a competitive one. So, anyone can not provide the water, but provide the service and, bring you the bill and teach you how to save water in your house. So we cannot look back. We have to look forward to the future because technology has changed so much. What's happening then is that the governance of the system, it's precluding or enduring monopoly structures that, avoid technological change or, solutions that are more, let's say, adapted to the scale of the islands. I said at the beginning, we are too small to have community sustainability. Yes, too small, no, sorry. We're too big to have community sustainable. Too big, why? Because we have a lot of population in the islands. We have too many islands. We have also, tourism, which induces an increase in population, a pressure, which is so big. So we need to have something in between a community sustainability approach and continental sustainability approach in key sectors like this one. For example, in energy, we need to produce local energy in local communities, but island, connected all over the island and highly digitalized. To provide renewable energy in these islands, we need to have more efficient systems as they have in Germany, for example, in terms of digitalization, because it's highly vulnerable and we do not have a backup, or we do not have a nuclear plants of France. So we need to innovate in how do we foresee this, the development of competition in these sectors.
Okay, thank you. More points? No? Thank you.
I have more.
Yes, Michael?
This is really fascinating for me, that distinction that you make between the continental sustainability and the island sustainability. It seems to me that a lot of the sustainability issues are independent of scale, actually. Whereas some of the approaches, the solution, may depend on scale, economic scale, etc. And therefore, my question is whether if taking a global view, even for the energy issue, about kind of a hybrid system that has different production depending on the regions and so forth, and one distribution system that goes over seasonal differences and day and night differences and so forth. So within such a view, the distinction between continental and island disappears, essentially. And the question is whether there are certain principles that are withheld. Even more, an island, for example, like La Palma, can in many ways be an experimental location for solution which can be then adopted on a continental scale.
Yes, even though you say that when you use all available technologies, the differences between the islands and the continental setting in terms of sustainability disappear, there's a key issue in there, which is the cost and the transition cost. Not the cost at the beginning now, and then where do we end up in 10 years or 20 years from now? But the transition of that, and who bears those costs? Who has to invest and who has to give up, income? And that's the distributional issue of that transition is what I am, trying to understand better and to improve. So there is an issue there, and I wanted to tell you something else about what you said. In terms of the technology, of course, you cannot use, it is not the same technologies, it is not the same solutions as the continent. You have to innovate on how to apply. For example, we have a very big problem with wastewater sewage. What is left when you clean the water, the solid part of that. No, we don't have enough of that material to build, big biogas plants like they are doing in the continent, or we don't have enough of that material to, have these composting plants as they have, for example, in Andalusia. They produce, I don't know, maybe 100 or 200 times than we do, no? So the scale is important in that production. But, what we are working here at a project at the university is to mix, for example, that waste with food waste, with some type of food waste that cannot be composted or can be And there you gain the scale enough to, use the available technology. So the scale is not, technologies are not so much developed at this point to have them applied in a small scale like ours. On the other hand, I agree with you. The islands should be filled with case studies, not only like they did in El Hierro with Corona, but there in La Palma. Indeed, we are having, you are in a very experimental setting for waste, for example. So the Cabildo and other La Palma is, trying to, from the bottom up, to produce, and we have here, for example, a tourism community, a circular community, so hotels are collecting food waste and they're bringing it to composting, and then they will go to the farm, and then from the farm the products go back to the hotel. So we are, pushing a lot of small case studies, but the barriers are immense because of sometimes environmental risk. So the regulator don't want to face any environmental risk because of the vulnerability of ecosystems or so on. And sometimes they just want to keep their income. It's very difficult to give up waste income, for example, in the municipalities, because that gives them, flexibility to provide other local services in them. So it's, yes, a lot of case studies. That's what will change the reality here, and showing those case studies to the people, to the citizens. This is possible. This is happening here. This, we need your help. We need your participation. We need more participation from citizens, from bottom up. But also we need, politicians and the local governments facing more pressure to, make possible those case studies.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Noemí. I think we don't have too much time for discussions. She's going to come next week. He's going to join next week for the final sessions. So you will have time to talk to her. But if you want to stay for the next part of this meeting, you're welcome as well, Noemí. And thank you very much.
Difficult to share what you are talking about and so on. So I will leave you now and see you next week over there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful time there in La Palma. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good work. Bye-bye. Bye.
So now we...